Hi, I'm Zadie, and the last words I heard before I left my mother's house were, "Why don't you just disappear?" Not from a stranger, not from a bully, from the daughter she chose, and then from her. I stayed quiet that day, but silence doesn't mean surrender. They erased me from photos, from documents, from their dinner table. But what they didn't know, I kept the receipts. And when I played their words back, in public, it wasn't me who disappeared. It was them. Before we dive in, tell me, what time are you listening and where from? I read every single comment. The quiet felt off, like something had shifted in the air but hadn't landed yet. I stood in my mother's living room that Sunday morning in Savannah, holding a warm cup of coffee in both hands. The air inside the house was thick with humidity and silence. I'd stopped by just to check in, like I always did at the end of my work week. But something about the way the room looked made me stop cold. It took a second to register what was wrong. At first glance, everything was in place. The floral drapes, the heirloom rocking chair, the sideboard with old knickknacks from flea markets she never remembered going to. But the walls, something about the walls. My eyes scanned the room again. The photos, every family photo had been changed. Some were newer prints, freshly framed, others were clearly altered. Images where my face had been carefully cropped out, digitally blurred, or replaced entirely. A graduation picture with only Cressida and Vera smiling under the oak tree. The beach trip from 2 summers ago. My arms were still around their shoulders, but the body had been trimmed clean out. Just space. I stepped closer to the large Yellowstone photo above the fireplace. That trip was the only real vacation we took together in the past 10 years. I remembered holding the camera, asking a stranger to take the photo. I had stood between them. Now, a strange gap remained where my body had once been. My fingers grazed the edge of the frame. It was crooked, like someone had hung it in a rush. Or maybe they just didn't care. Down the hall, I heard the soft creak of a bedroom door. Then, the light footsteps I'd grown to recognize too well. Cressida. She walked down the stairs with her phone in hand, wearing one of her branded athleisure sets, hair styled like she'd slept in rollers. Her eyes met mine for a split second, enough to register that she'd seen me, but she looked away just as quickly and walked right into the kitchen. "Good morning," I said, trying to keep my voice even. She didn't answer. I could hear Vera in the kitchen clinking dishes. No one responded. I walked into the kitchen behind Cressida. Vera was at the counter stirring her sweet tea pitcher like she was preparing for a church brunch instead of confronting the fact that her daughter had been erased from the walls of her home. "Did something happen to the photos?" I asked lightly. "I noticed a few looked different." Vera didn't look up. "They looked cluttered," she said flatly. Cressida made a sharp noise, somewhere between a scoff and a laugh, and poured herself oat milk like nothing had been said. I looked around the table at the breakfast Vera had laid out. Biscuits, eggs, bacon. Not a single plate for me. I sat anyway. My appetite was long gone, but I needed something to anchor me. I folded my hands and tried to breathe through the pressure building in my chest. They weren't even pretending anymore. "So," I said, breaking the silence again, "if you want, I can take a look at the AC unit this week. It sounded like it was rattling last time I—" "Why don't you just disappear?" Cressida snapped. The words hit the room like a bottle shattering on tile. She didn't even look up from her phone when she said it. Her voice was sharp, practiced, like it was something she'd rehearsed for weeks. I blinked. Vera didn't scold her, didn't flinch. She set down her fork carefully, looked me square in the eye. "Maybe we'd all be better off if you did." I heard that sentence more clearly than any sound I'd ever known. Not because she yelled. She didn't need to. She meant it. My hands were steady when I placed my coffee mug down. I looked at both of them, the woman who raised me and the woman who always made sure I knew I was second tier. "Okay," I said. That was it. No screaming, no tears, just gravity shifting beneath my feet. I stood and walked out of the kitchen, climbed the stairs, each step echoing like a countdown. In my childhood bedroom, nothing had changed. The pink floral wallpaper, the squeaky dresser, even the lamp I brought from college. It was all still there, untouched, like it had been frozen in time. But it felt unfamiliar now, like a museum display of someone else's life. I pulled my old weekender bag from the closet and packed just enough. 2 outfits, toothbrush, phone charger. I wasn't sure where I was going, just that it wouldn't be here. Downstairs, I paused at the foot of the stairs. Cressida stood at the top now, arms folded across her chest, watching. Vera leaned in the doorway, her face unreadable. "So you're leaving," she said flatly. "I'm respecting what you said," I replied, my hand on the doorknob. "You'd be better off, so I'm giving you that." Neither woman moved. No apologies, no reach for reconciliation. Just silence. I stepped out into the warm Savannah morning. The sun was bright, but I felt cold. As I pulled the front door closed behind me, I turned back once, just long enough to catch sight of the Yellowstone photo through the window. Still crooked, still empty. The moment I opened my eyes, I knew exactly where I was, just not where I was supposed to be. Ryan's guest room was quiet, the mattress beneath me firmer than mine back home, the air dry with the faint scent of cedar. Light filtered through the beige blinds, soft and indifferent. I reached over and grabbed my phone off the nightstand. No texts, no missed calls, not from Vera, not from Cressida. I opened Instagram more out of habit than hope. The first story that loaded nearly knocked the breath out of me. Cressida, smiling wide in a silver sequin dress, raising a glass while surrounded by people I didn't recognize, stood at the center of what looked like a birthday celebration. In the background, barely in frame, was Vera, holding a tray of cupcakes, the kind she only makes for special occasions. I tapped the corner to check the timestamp. Last night. I stared at the screen, my thumb frozen over the next story. I hadn't even gotten a text. No call, no thinking of you or sorry things got weird. Nothing. And the kicker, it had been my birthday. They threw a party for her, on my birthday. I sat up slowly, pulled my legs over the edge of the bed and whispered, I didn't even get a text. It wasn't just forgetting. Forgetting is a missed card, a late voicemail. This was erasure with frosting. Later that morning, I wandered into the kitchen, where Ryan had left a note on the counter. "Meeting at 10, help yourself to the blueberry bagels." I smiled faintly. He was one of the few people who actually knew I liked them toasted with just a little butter. After eating in silence, I opened my laptop but couldn't focus. Instead, I found myself slipping into a memory. A few years back, New Year's Eve, when Vera and Cressida went on a cruise, just the two of them. "You don't mind watching the house, do you, baby?" Vera had said, handing me a small envelope of cash for cat food and pizza. I didn't mind. At least not back then. I'd even told myself, it's okay, they need the break. But that became the routine. Every winter, every holiday, I was the one left behind, keeping the lights on, cleaning the fridge, making sure the plants didn't die. Never once invited. Just useful. That's all I'd ever been. Around noon, I met Ryan at the corner cafe on Broughton Street. We grabbed our usual table by the window, and he waved down the server with a casual nod. "You look like you've been staring at a wall for hours," he said, sliding into the booth. I was, and the wall stared back. He raised an eyebrow. I told him about the party, the date, the absence. Ryan didn't blink. He just said, "You've been a damn doormat, Zadie. They treat you like a housekeeper, not family." I winced. "It's not like that." He leaned in. "Zadie, come on. You think it's coincidence they keep doing this? They've shown you who you are to them over and over. You're just not ready to believe it." I didn't have a comeback. I stirred my coffee and went quiet. After lunch, I walked back to Ryan's house, needing air more than caffeine. On the way, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Hastings, one of Vera's neighbors. She liked to call me to check in on things around the block. We chatted for a minute, then she mentioned in passing, "Vera said she and Cressida are doing their little family trip again. Just the two of them this year. Sounds lovely." I stopped walking. "Just the two of them?" "That's what she said. It's their tradition now, isn't it? Mother and daughter bonding. No fuss." I murmured something polite and hung up. That word just cracked something I didn't know was still whole. It wasn't forgetfulness. It wasn't miscommunication. It was exclusion. Plain, deliberate. Back at the house, I sank into the old leather chair in the corner of Ryan's den and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through photos I'd saved over the years, group shots, vacations, events. In almost all of them, I wasn't there, because I'd been the one holding the camera. I always told myself I didn't need to be in the picture, that it wasn't about me. But now, looking back, it felt like that was the point. Maybe they never saw me as part of the picture. Maybe I never really was. It started with a knot in my stomach that wouldn't loosen, not even after a full night's sleep and a long shower. So I dressed in something clean, pulled my hair back, and drove to the county records office. No calls, no texts, just instinct. The building sat quiet behind the courthouse square, a low brick structure that smelled faintly of copy toner and old wood. Inside, the clerk, an older woman with gray curls and sharp glasses, smiled when she saw me. "Zadie, right? Your dad used to come in here with muffins for the staff, said it kept us on his good side." She chuckled. I smiled back weakly. "I'm looking for his will. I think I need to see the last version he filed." She didn't ask why. Just nodded, typed something into her computer, then disappeared behind a set of shelves that groaned when touched. A few minutes later, she returned, a yellowing folder in her hand. She laid it flat on the counter and opened it carefully. There it was. His signature. My name. Clear as day. Primary beneficiary, Zadie L. Harmon. I exhaled slowly, but she didn't stop flipping pages. "Wait," she said. "Here's something more recent." Another page, another signature, same handwriting, different content. "Amendment filed 2 years ago," she explained, her tone shifting. Cressida's name had been added. Mine had been replaced. She looked at me gently. "It's all legal, filed and notarized. Said it was just to update some things." 2 years ago. That was the same time Vera mentioned needing updated medical documents. I remember because she insisted I didn't need to come by to sign anything. My throat went dry. I left the office quietly, gripping a copy of both versions like they might morph in my hands if I blinked. Back in the car, I didn't cry. I just sat still for a long minute, then started the engine. The hospital records department was 15 minutes away. I didn't plan on going, but some part of me did, the part that still wanted to be wrong. Inside, a younger man at the desk tapped his keyboard while I stood there clutching my ID. "I'm trying to check if I'm still listed as an emergency contact on my mother's file," I said. He glanced at the screen, then tilted his head. "Name?" "Zadie Harmon, her daughter, Vera Harmon." Click, pause, click. "I'm sorry, you're not listed." I blinked. "That's not right, I used to be. I've been on that list since I was in nursing school." He turned the monitor slightly, pointed to the entry. "The plan was updated 4 months ago. Only names listed now are Vera and Cressida Harmon." The words didn't hit me all at once. They sank slowly, like stones in a pond. "You were removed," he added softly. I nodded slowly, and then, without planning to, I said it out loud. "But I'm her daughter." He looked down, uncomfortable. "I'm really sorry." I left. Again, no tears. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was something colder. By the time I pulled into Vera's driveway, the sun had shifted just enough to cast long shadows over the lawn. I didn't call. I didn't knock. She opened the door before I could ring the bell, as if she was expecting me. Or maybe she saw me pull up. "Zadie," she said evenly. I held out the insurance printout. My hand didn't even shake. "Did you forget to tell me I don't exist anymore?" She stared at the paper like it was a menu she hadn't ordered from. "You're over 30, she said after a moment. "Why would you still be on anything?" I let the silence stretch. I let her hear it. "You're right," I said softly. "I shouldn't be." She opened her mouth to speak again, but I turned before she could finish. I walked back down the porch steps with the same posture I'd held all morning, straight, steady, resolved. But as I passed the window on my left, I paused. There on the hallway wall, right behind the glass, was the Yellowstone photo again. Only now it was tighter, cropped in, not a trace of me. I stood there for another beat, then turned away. I wasn't forgotten. I was deleted. If they could delete me from the documents, what else had they rewritten behind my back? That question followed me like a shadow as I sat in the quiet of Ryan's guest room, fingers curled around a lukewarm mug of tea I hadn't touched. My phone buzzed with a notification. My cousin Penelope, always too curious for her own good, had forwarded me a video. It was a local TV clip, a community spotlight. Cressida and Vera, seated side by side, both in pastel linen and plastic grins. The banner at the bottom read, "New Southern Revival, Mother-Daughter Duo Revitalize Family Property." I didn't recognize the house at first. The camera panned slowly, whitewashed porch railings, magnolia wreaths, a restored tin roof. Then came the punch in the gut. It was Gran Audra's house, the one that had supposedly gone into probate, the one Vera once cried over, claiming the contractors had gutted the wiring and it would cost a fortune to fix. I had wired her $26,000 from my savings, no questions asked. "And now," Vera said, in the soft, polished voice she used for public sympathy, "we just wanted to honor what came before. Family roots are everything." I turned the volume down. My ears were ringing. They used my money to build their image. Later that day, I drove past the boutique. I didn't intend to stop, but my foot slowed at the corner. The parking lot was half full. The sign outside read, "Legacy and Lace-Curated Southern Heritage." I parked, walked in. The smell hit me first, lavender and old wood. Inside, everything gleamed. Reclaimed beams, polished brass fixtures, soft instrumental jazz humming through speakers. And there, hanging in a glass frame near the register, was Gran's quilt. Creamy floral patches, stitched by hand, the edges worn from time and love. I had stored it in Vera's cedar chest for safekeeping when the house was being gutted. Now, a plaque below it read, "Maternal Heirloom, circa 1960, from the Cressida Harmon Collection." My heart didn't thud. It just dropped. A woman browsing a display table turned to Cressida and smiled. "This whole place just feels like a family hug. You must have come from a long line of women who knew beauty." Cressida, without missing a beat, smiled. "It's in my blood." I nearly choked. You bled me dry to wear that smile. I didn't say it aloud. I just kept walking, slipping quietly past a half-open door marked "Staff Only." Inside, the back room was dimmer, cooler. The scent of cedar lingered faintly. And there it was. A mannequin, centered under a skylight, draped in ivory lace. My dress. The dress my stepfather commissioned before he passed. A custom design, handmade silk. A note once tied to the hanger read, "No one else touches this but Zadie." Now? A new tag dangled from the neckline. "Curated by Cressida Exclusive Piece." My throat tightened. I touched the hem. Still soft, still mine. And suddenly, I was back in that moment, 17 and tearful, when he whispered, "When it's your big day, kiddo, this is yours, no one else." It wasn't just a dress, it was a promise. She didn't just take the house. She took the parts of me I didn't even realize I still had. I left quickly. No scene, no confrontation. The door chimed behind me, and by the time I reached my car, my legs felt like glass, but my hands? Steady. That evening at Ryan's place, I didn't speak much. I just sat at the dining table with a legal pad and pen. I began listing dates, transfers, screenshots of emails, photo timestamps, receipts from the renovation. My hands moved methodically, like I was charting an infection spreading across clean skin. I wasn't going to cry. I was building something. They wanted a legacy? I'd show them who poured the foundation, who patched the roof, who paid the damn bills. Because legacies aren't just inherited, they're claimed. And I was done asking for permission. The street was dim, quiet. Spanish moss hung from the oaks like tired curtains as I eased my car to a stop 2 houses down from Vera's porch. I hadn't meant to stop, only to drop off an old recipe book she'd loaned me last Christmas. But something about the soft clink of glass and the gentle hum of voices pulled me back into the driver's seat. Their porch light was on, 2 wine glasses, 2 silhouettes, Vera and Cressida side by side in the swing, laughing. I left the engine running, cracked the window. I hadn't noticed until then that my phone, left on the passenger seat, still open to the voice memo app, had resumed recording. It must have glitched, or maybe I'd bumped it earlier. Either way, it captured what I couldn't bear to keep in my memory alone. Vera's voice, that familiar syrupy twang. She's always been so sensitive. Honestly, I think she still believes she matters to us. Cressida snorted, too loud for the stillness around them. It's easier when she's not around. She just brings weight. She drags the mood down. They didn't see me. They didn't know I was close enough to hear the truth. I didn't step out. I didn't return the book. I didn't breathe until I turned the corner out of that neighborhood for what I thought might be the last time. Back at Ryan's apartment, the TV flickered with some late-night detective show neither of us really watched. He was humming in the kitchen, steeping ginger tea. I sat with my phone in hand, the screen glowing with unread messages. One caught my eye, a group thread with Vera and Cressida that I usually muted. It was a misfire, a message meant for someone else, sent to me. Vera, just let her drift. That girl always needed more than she gave. I stared at it for 5 minutes, unmoving. My thumb hovered above the reply button, but I didn't type. I couldn't. Not yet. Ryan walked in and paused when he saw my face. "Hey," he said softly, setting the mug down. "What is it?" I showed him the screen. He cursed under his breath, then kneeled beside the couch. "Zadie, this is not okay. You can't keep letting them treat you like you're disposable." I shook my head, not in disagreement, but in thought. "They're not wrong," I whispered. "I did always hope for more, because I gave more than they ever saw." Ryan's expression tightened. "So what? That means they get to rewrite your place in this family?" "No," I said, clearer now. "It means I've been playing a silent part in my own erasure." I didn't cry. I got up, walked to my bag, pulled out the notebook I'd started after seeing my dress in that boutique. I replayed the audio from the car, trimmed out the silence, kept the sting. Vera, she still believes she matters. Cressida, she brings weight. I saved the file. I pulled up my cloud drive, opened the folder labeled Renovation Docs, and renamed it If They Ever Try to Erase Me Again. Inside, I uploaded the audio, the renovation invoices, emails confirming the wire transfers, screenshots of texts from Vera asking for help, photos I'd taken when the house was still half fallen and moldy, when I believed I was saving a legacy we all cared about. They called it sensitive. I called it proof. Later that night, Ryan asked if I needed anything before bed. I told him I was fine, just wanted to pick up some cold medicine. His throat had been scratchy and the weather was shifting. As I pulled into the pharmacy parking lot, I saw a young woman sitting on the curb near the entrance. She looked barely 20. Her mascara was streaked, her arms folded tight against herself. A woman, her mother, I guessed, was pacing in front of her, throwing up her hands and saying things I didn't need to hear to understand. "You always ruin these nights. I should have left you at home." The girl didn't say a word, just stared at the pavement, taking it all in. I didn't get out of the car, I didn't interfere, but I watched. And I saw myself, all those years, taking it, biting my tongue, believing if I stayed quiet, it would hurt less. That if I just waited long enough, someone would see what I gave. But silence doesn't protect you. It only teaches them how deep the knife can go. If I let them do this to me again, I'm showing her that it's okay to stay small. That love means swallowing yourself whole. And I won't be part of that lie anymore. Burned in public, I hadn't planned to go inside. Not really. I told myself it was just for a bite, some sweet tea, maybe a glance at the past before I turned the page for good. But the moment I stepped into Vera's diner, the air didn't feel nostalgic. It felt like walking into a play where everyone knew their part, and I was the extra who wandered in off script. The bell jingled like it always had. The place still smelled like fried catfish and lemon pie. One of the old servers, Trina, lit up when she saw me. "Zadie? Oh, honey, it's been too long." And then she stopped. Cressida emerged from the kitchen like she owned the air. She was wearing one of the aprons I'd ordered during the diner's reopening years ago, the navy ones with stitched names on the top corner. I didn't even need to squint to see mine, faded but still there. Cressida laughed as she spotted me. "Oh, I thought she wasn't allowed here anymore." The whole diner went quiet. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Then Vera stepped out. She didn't even look surprised, just annoyed. "Zadie, please. We're busy. We're trying to keep the energy light here." Her tone wasn't harsh. That almost made it worse. It was the way you speak to a stray dog sniffing around a clean doorstep. I didn't say anything, just nodded and left. Ryan found me an hour later, sitting on a bench by the little square across from the courthouse, the same spot where I used to wait for Vera when I was 12, after her lunch shifts. "She wore my apron," I said, my name still stitched into the seam. Ryan sat beside me, passed me a hot drink without a word. Then he said quietly, "So do something about it." That night, I opened the shared email account Vera and I once used during the diner's expansion. It had been years since I'd logged in, but my name was still tied to it. Buried in old threads was a conversation that started out mundane, supply vendors, lighting invoices. Then I found it. An exchange between Vera and someone named Jeffrey_funding. The thread discussed a silent investment arrangement for branding updates. A scanned permit form followed, filed under Cressida's name. But the startup cash? The routing number? It matched the personal business loan I'd co-signed with Vera when the bank wouldn't back her. I read it twice. Then again. They launched her brand, using my credit, my loan, my signature. I forwarded everything to myself and titled the folder, "Proof, not just hurt, but theft." I wasn't ready for a lawsuit, not yet, but I had a friend on the HOA's legal committee who owed me a favor. I wrote her, requesting a quiet inquiry. I have documentation. And hit send. The next morning, I woke to a community group notification. Cressida had posted a beaming photo in front of the boutique. Caption, "Excited to expand the Vera & Company brand, thanks to our family legacy." I didn't even hesitate. I reposted it with a single line, "Let's define legacy, shall we?" It wasn't explosive, but it lit something. The comments rolled in, neighbors tagging others, screenshots spreading. Someone asked, "Wasn't this place funded by that nurse daughter? I remember seeing her at the grand opening." I stayed quiet, let the questions do the work. Because the moment I pushed back, I didn't hear silence. I heard the rumble of a storm. The storm didn't wait long. By Saturday afternoon, I'd gotten the email. "Special HOA session, urgent financial review." I didn't need to ask why. A neighbor had tipped me off the night before, forwarding a photo of the posted agenda. At the top, Heritage Brand Expansion, Use of Community Grant Funds. Right beneath it, in smaller print, presented by Vera Gale and Cressida Norin. I arrived early, but not first. The community hall buzzed with low conversation. Folding chairs formed 3 uneven rows, facing a long table stacked with coffee dispensers, HOA pamphlets, and half-filled forms. Cressida stood near the table, checking her lipstick in her phone camera. Vera was already seated, papers organized, mouth pressed thin. They didn't see me at first. Or maybe they did and hoped I'd just blend into the drywall. But when my name was brought up mid-discussion, Vera, leaning forward with that saccharine drawl of hers, "Zadie hasn't lived here for years. She's not really involved." That's when I stood. I opened the manila folder I'd brought. Slowly. Deliberately. "This says otherwise." I laid out the renovation invoices from 3 years ago. Signed by me, paid by me. I showed the board the emails between me, the contractor, and the property committee. I pointed to the HOA grant guidelines printed in my hand, circled in red. Grants must reflect contributions from long-standing residents with documented volunteer service. Cressida crossed her arms. Vera tilted her head like I was reciting a fairy tale, but the murmurs in the room were shifting. Eyebrows raised, phones pulled out. One of the board members asked, "Can you verify your name on these transactions?" I nodded. "And one more thing." I tapped my phone. The speaker came on low at first, then louder. Vera's voice. "She's always so sensitive. I think she believes she still matters." Then Cressida. "It's easier when she's gone. She brings nothing but weight." Gasps rippled across the room like someone had dropped ice in boiling water. "This is out of context," Cressida said quickly, stepping forward. A woman from the second row shook her head. "No, it's exactly the context we needed." No shouting followed, no chaos. just a thick, suffocating pause where reputation curdled and faces hardened. When the board called for a short recess, I quietly stepped outside. Ryan met me in the parking lot with a hand on my back, saying nothing. We drove back to his place. The sun had dipped low by then, turning the trees amber. I asked him to give me a moment alone in the garage. The smell of oil and old cedar was strangely comforting. I sat on a folding chair beside the shelf of old boxes. My name, scrawled in faded Sharpie, stood out on one. I opened it. Inside, my childhood trophy from the county spelling bee, my stepdad's old fishing cap, and a smaller shoebox marked in his handwriting, "Zadie's memories do not toss." I held it in my lap. For a moment, I didn't move. Then I cracked the lid open and found the photo album. Pages thick with years, but his notes were still there. Zadie's first dog. Zadie and her apple pie attempt. Zadie's senior recital. She nailed it. He'd kept it all. And suddenly, the voices of Vera and Cressida didn't hold power anymore. Not like they had. I wasn't gone. I hadn't vanished. They had tried to cut me out, but this was still mine. My memories, my proof, my voice. Later that night, a direct message landed in my inbox. A neighbor I barely knew. "I always wondered why you weren't at the block parties. Now I understand. I'm sorry." That was the shift. Not a roar, not applause. Just quiet acknowledgement. And for me, that was enough, for now. I sat down at Ryan's dining table, laid out every document, every screenshot, every note. I filled out a formal complaint against Vera and company, citing misuse of grant funds and improper business filings, but I didn't hit send, not yet. I slid everything into a fresh envelope and wrote on the front, "If they push again." They would. But this time, I was ready. They wanted to bury me with politeness. So I showed up in silence. The invitation wasn't sent to me directly. It came forwarded through Ryan, passed along from a neighborhood listserv, a glossy event header, "Celebrating Legacy, the women who built Vera and company." The kind of thing that wraps poison in pink cursive. I didn't RSVP. I didn't need to. People like me never really get invited. We're just supposed to take the hint and stay away. But that Sunday evening, I pulled my hair back, slipped on a navy dress I hadn't worn in 2 years, and walked into the old McAllen event hall like I had every right to be there. Because I did. The place was dressed up to look old money Southern. Magnolia centerpieces, vintage china, gilded frames of Cressida's headshots propped on every corner. She stood at the podium with a flute of champagne, glowing like she'd swallowed the spotlight. Vera sat at the front table, smiling like a mother of the bride. I walked in as Cressida was mid-toast. I wouldn't be the woman I am today without the strength and wisdom of those who came before me. She didn't pause when she saw me slip into a chair near the back, didn't even blink. The room didn't gasp, but I felt a ripple. One of those quiet ones you only notice when you've been excluded long enough to sense the undertow. I let her finish. I let them sip and nod. I waited. And then, when the room settled back into murmurs and servers began placing plates, I stood. I didn't say my name. I didn't explain myself. I simply walked to the front, set a small Bluetooth speaker on the podium, and turned to face the crowd. "Before we raise another glass," I said, my voice steady, "I thought we might want to hear from one more strong woman in the family." I pressed play. The voicemail started as soft static. Then Vera's voice filled the room. "Zadie's just baggage. She clings to the past because she has no future." It was followed by Cressida's laugh. The cruel kind. The kind people use when they think you'll never hear it. The silence that followed was louder than the voice itself. A woman across the room put her fork down. A sponsor from the community board lowered her champagne. Cressida tried to speak. "This is out of context," but I raised a hand, calm. "This business, this brand, this legacy dinner was built with my credit, my labor, my name. While they erased me from pictures, they signed me onto loans. While they cropped me out, they cashed me in." A man near the back, someone from the HOA committee, whispered to the woman next to him, "That's the one. The nurse. The one they—" Then he caught himself. Another woman stood up, quietly walked to the door. Her heels echoed like exclamation points across the tile. I turned to Vera, then to Cressida. "I'm not here for your approval," I said. "I'm here for the truth." And then I handed a sealed envelope, thick, cream-colored, labeled in black pen, to the woman from the city's local development council. She was one of the donors listed on the event page. I said nothing as I passed it to her. She opened it slowly. Her brows furrowed as she flipped through tax filings, business records, and itemized financial transfers from my account. My name was on every page. Not as a founder, but as a funder. A silent one. Until now. A flash went off. Someone had started filming. I didn't flinch. Vera sat motionless. Cressida, hands trembling, knocked her champagne off the table. It shattered. She hissed, "You're ruining everything." "No," I said. "I'm just stopping the lie before it goes any further." I walked to the back of the room. The voicemail was still playing on loop, faint but clear. "She clings to the past because she has no future." And then someone clapped. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. Just one slow, solid clap. Then another. It didn't swell into a standing ovation. This wasn't a movie. But it followed me out. And this time the cameras didn't stay on Cressida. They turned with me as I reached the door, my back straight, my heels steady, no script. Just truth. The sun felt softer that Sunday. Or maybe it was me. Maybe I had stopped bracing for the chill behind every warm day. I wandered through the farmer's market with no real list, no task to complete. I passed honey jars and hand-lathed cutting boards, letting the scent of roasted pecans and fresh peaches wrap around me like old music. Then I saw it. One small booth with folded cloth napkins arranged in wooden crates. One napkin was folded like a golden leaf. It stopped me cold. My mother used to fold them that way for holidays, tucking them into glass tumblers like proud declarations. Back then, I thought they meant we were special. Now I saw them differently, not as a sign of pride, but performance. Still, I bought one, not for nostalgia, not for her. I bought it because it was beautiful, and I wanted it on my table. When I got home, a white envelope was waiting in my mailbox. The HOA's letterhead stared up at me like a verdict. They'd revoked the funding for Cressida's boutique expansion. An investigation was underway. Witnesses had come forward. Apparently, the audio clip had made its rounds. I didn't press charges. I forwarded everything to the board, voicemails, emails, invoices, but I didn't file a suit. Some people thought I should have. Even Ryan asked why I wasn't taking them to court. "I didn't want revenge," I told him. "I wanted the truth to stick." That afternoon, I placed one last envelope on Vera's porch. I didn't ring the bell. I didn't hover. Inside it was a copy of the original renovation invoice she'd once told me got lost in the shuffle, a printed transcript of the voicemail where she called me baggage, and a handwritten note on plain-lined paper. "This is not for closure. It's for accountability." I didn't want her apology. I wanted her discomfort. I walked away without turning back. Back at home, I placed the golden leaf napkin on my kitchen table. My table. No one else's. It wasn't folded by Vera. It wasn't waiting for a family gathering where I was expected to smile while being erased. It was mine, for no occasion, for no performance. Ryan stopped by later with coffee. We didn't talk much, just sat. "It's quiet," he said after a while, breaking the silence gently. I looked at the napkin. "That's how you know it's finally mine." He smiled. No grand gesture, no speech. We just sat there, letting the stillness do what years of noise never could. I thought of all the things I didn't get growing up, the birthdays I house sat through, the photos I wasn't in, the holidays where I folded napkins and set places I was never meant to fill. And I thought of all the ways I showed up anyway. "You don't always get the family you hoped for," I murmured to myself later that night as I washed the single coffee mug from our visit. "But you get to become the one person who never erased you." I folded the napkin gently, placed it back in the drawer. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is leave the frame and let them explain the gaps they created.